O God, though my words will be spoken today, may only your word be heard. Amen. Amen. Please make yourselves comfortable. At our vigil this evening, we began in darkness. We lit fire. We passed the light candle to candle. A small flame became many. And slowly the darkness gave way to the light as we heard the arc of God's redemptive story, a continuous movement always oriented toward newness. Darkness was interrupted little by the spreading and growing of light, and we were reminded about the unfolding nature of God's story through the story of God's people, Israel. God always bringing forth something new when the story may have seemed to have reached its conclusion. This is how our night begins at the vigil, because this is how resurrection always begins. Not with certainty, but with interruption. Not with clarity, but with something breaking open. An unimagined or unimaginable new bend to the arc of God's story that Israel and all of us are invited into. And then we heard proclaimed the Gospel of Matthew about what resurrection looks like and feels like as it opens. As Matthew's author tells us, the women go to the tomb just as the first day of the week was dawning. We are placed at a threshold moment, an early hour between the night that was and the morning breaking open, when nocturnal creatures will return to their lairs and other animals begin their activity slowly. It also is a time between what has been made known to the women already and a future they could never truly imagine. They come to the tomb not with the expectation of resurrection, but to tend to the body of Jesus, to face the reality of Jesus' death. And then, in an instant, everything shifts. There is a great earthquake. The same word that's used at Jesus' death appears again to describe the shaking ground. Creation itself is responding to what is happening. The stone is rolled away, not to release Jesus, but to reveal what God has already done. The angel speaks to the women, and then Matthew's gospel tells us the women respond. They left the tomb quickly with fear and great joy. With fear and great joy. The Greek word for fear used here is phobos. It means fear, but also an awe or a disorientation or the trembling that comes when the world no longer fits together the way it once did. And the Greek word for joy used here, chara, is not superficial happiness, but deep gladness rooted in God's action. Matthew's gospel holds these two emotions together. The women move from the empty tomb to tell the others, holding both fear and great joy. Now, fear is something that the tomb guards experienced too. The same word, phobos, is used. When the earthquake happens, when the angel descends, Matthew tells us, for fear of him, the guards shook and became like dead men. They too feel the same fear as the women. But notice what happens to the guards. They froze. They became like dead people in the presence of promises of new life. The women, by contrast, also feeling this fear, they pivot and they leave to go tell the others. They move quickly to spread the good news. This is one of the clearest juxtapositions in the resurrection story. Two groups encounter the same divine disruption in this moment. Two groups of people experience the same fear, the same phobos, but it leads them to completely opposite responses. For the guards, fear causes them to become almost paralyzed. They remain bound to the logic of the tomb, to death. They can't imagine that something new is happening. But for the women, fear is transformed into action. It becomes part of the energy that pushes them forward. And Matthew underscores this urgency. He says the women leave quickly. And then, only as they are going, only as they are in motion, only after they pivot and reorient themselves in the direction toward the others, away from the place of death, only then does Jesus meet them. He meets them not in the tomb, not in the place of death, but in the instant and moment of their movement away from that place as they embrace this very new promise of new life. And this reveals something important about the resurrection story and our resurrection-oriented life and faith. Resurrection is not only the object of our faith, it is a movement that we participate in. The question Matthew places before his readers and before us is not whether we will experience fear. We surely will, we surely do. The question is, what will we allow our fears to do? Will our fears render us like the guards, frozen and unable to move, holding tightly to what we have known, even when God is seemingly doing something new? Or will we hold our fear like the women hold our fear alongside our joy? Will we hold a real, present, and unresolved fear and carry it with us forward into a promised future of new life? We all know what fear is like. We know what it is like to have the ground shift beneath us. We know what it is like to have the face of a change, to have to face a change that we did not choose. And we know what it is like to stand at the edge of something that we do not fully yet understand. And that's not true only in our personal lives, it's also true in our life as a church. We are living in a time when our church is being invited to change. Patterns that once felt stable no longer hold in the same way. Assumptions about who we are and how we gather and how we worship and what we expect from people are being reshaped. There is, if we are honest, a kind of fear in all of that. We're being disoriented in a way. It's a kind of new trembling that we're encountering, a sense that the ground is moving beneath us. And it would be understandable, it would be very understandable to respond like the guards at the tomb, to freeze, to cling tightly to what we have known and what we are familiar with, to become, in a sense, immobilized by the fear of what might be lost if we did something new or tried something different. But Matthew's resurrection story offers another way. Follow the women. The women do not deny their fear. They also don't try to resolve it. They carry it, and they move. And in that movement, they discover chara, great joy. Not because everything is clear or perfect, but because God is at work in beautiful ways that they could not have anticipated or even imagined. So maybe the invitation to all of us this night as a church is this: not to wait until we feel certain, not to wait until the fear is gone, and also not to become paralyzed by it, but to ask ourselves, where is God already inviting us to go? Where is resurrection already unfolding in our midst? Maybe these are places we do not expect. Maybe it is in a form that we don't understand or need to know more about. Where are we being called to gather in new ways to meet the needs of our neighbors who are seeking connection, longing for meaning, and hunger for grace? Where are we being called to step out even if we are not entirely sure what comes next? The resurrection story reminds us that resurrection is not found by standing still at the tomb. It is found in the willingness to reorient ourselves and step out, to leave what has held us, to trust that God is not finished with us yet and is inviting us into something new. The women left the tomb quickly, holding fear and great joy. And as they went, Jesus met them. I wonder if the same has been true or will be true for us. That as we move, as we turn, as we reorient ourselves toward new ways of gathering, new ways of breaking bread, new ways of expressing church, with joy and with trembling, even questions and uncertainties and doubts to be sure, and with fear, I wonder if we too will meet the risen Christ, inviting us to step into new life that God is already bringing forth among us. Amen.